Hi everyone. I am here with the legendary wrestler Adrian Street, also known as Exotic Adrian Street. He's a new documentary out, and we're going to be talking about his career. We're going to be talking about the documentary and a whole lot of exciting things. So, Adrian, thank you for taking the time to speak with me today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, well, nice talking to you, Michael.
Yeah, so I watched your documentary. It was excellent. Really enjoyed it. And one of the things that jumped out at me in the documentary is that you talked about your relationship with your father. So, for those who haven't seen the documentary yet, how would you describe your relationship with your father?
Um, Not good, not good at all. In actual fact, um, even though I had a horrible relationship with my father, I would say that he actually helped me through life
Mm,
because he made me more determined not to be the failure that he was sure I was going to be. And he always predicted I was going to be. I'd never amount to anything. It made me more determined to make sure that I did amount to something. And it's true that I've always had a great belief in myself and a determination. Anytime the things looked impossible, I just thought to myself, yeah, this would suit Dad. So it just made me 500% determined that I was going to sort of succeed. And the thing is, if you're determined to do something and you won't give up and you never stop trying, then you will succeed or you'll still be trying.
that's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. And speaking of that, did this inspire you to become a professional wrestler? What made you even think to do that in the first place?
Well, quite honestly, I've always been interested in history, and I think that if I'd been born a couple of thousand years earlier, I would have been a gladiator in Rome.
Mm,
And I really like the idea that they dressed up to do it. I mean, they wore sort of exotic armor and all that kind of thing. Before I ever wanted to be a wrestler, I wanted to be an American Red Indian
mm,
because I liked the way. I mean, they painted their faces and they wore feathers, and in my own way, I did that. It got misconstrued and everything, and everybody sort of first time I ever marched to the ring, like dressed up the way I wanted to be, instead of the fans going like, well, in the dressing room before I went out, the other wrestlers. I mean, there's an awful lot of jealousy in the business. I got that from the other wrestlers when I was got myself ready. I had a powder blue jacket, velvet jacket with a silver lame lining. I had trunks and boots to match, whereas other wrestlers only wore like black or brown boots in those days. Um, and I recently dyed my hair blonde.
mm.
Now we're marching out of the ring expecting the people to go like, "Oh wow, what a great little athlete!" And I was going to prove the wrestlers wrong in the dressing room, who were saying, "Oh, you're not going out like that. You don't look like a wrestler." Anyway, instead of getting the adoration that I expected and I sort of deserved, it was like, "Woo, Mary, isn't she cute? Give us a kiss," and all that sort of stuff. But the thing is, I've been used. I'm never stuck. I'm never stuck for a reply ever. I never ever let anybody have the last word. So it was like, "Who'd want to kiss you, fatso?" Hmm. And somebody else like, "Oh, yeah." So I wouldn't kiss you like this if my life depended on it. I like my men more manly. You're too effeminate for me. And as I'm going to the ring, my opponent, he was a Scottish wrestler, Ted Hannon. He gave it like a limp wrist sort of thing and sort of started blowing kisses about the place. So then I said, okay, you'll get yours. When I got in the ring and the bell went, he was like facing the ropes. I dashed across the ring, touched him up the backside. He nearly jumped over the top rope. He spun round like all horrified, and I planted a kiss on his chops. And I mean, the crowd absolutely exploded. But I was mad. So, I mean, I got really aggressive with him and everything like that. I turned him inside out, but still sort of skipped around the ring and sort of pouted into people and all that kind of stuff, just to sort of throw it back in their faces, just to show them I wasn't upset, even though I really was. Anyway, I marched back to the dressing room and walked into the dressing room again, as if I meant to do that. I mean, could you imagine like sort of making your entrance at a party? You go in and slip on a banana skin, fall face first in a trifle, and you come up with cream and cherries all over your face. I mean, you look so totally silly, but I mean, if you went, haha, like I meant to do that, and be part and like sort of be part of the joke rather than the brunt of it.
Mm.
That was my attitude. Anyway, I went in the dressing room and as if and didn't sort of let any of them sort of face me or anything like that. They're all looking at me with their mouths hanging open. And I thought to myself, well, I'm having the last word. Yeah, what about that? Like, look at the reaction I got more than you. And that stuck in my mind. I thought to myself, yeah, I did. I'm I'm a sucker for attention. I mean, never mind what I gotta do, I'll do it to get the attention on me. And I thought to myself, well, that's not the kind of attention I was looking for, but it's a hell of a lot more than anybody else got tonight.
Mm.
So I thought to myself, maybe they'll accept, maybe they'll sort of accept it and see it the way I wanted them to in the first place in the next arena I go to. But they didn't. It was the same scenario. And I kept throwing it back in their faces and getting more and more attention. And slowly but surely, it sort of dawned on me that that was the way I needed to go. And then I kept just pushing the envelope, pushing the envelope, pushing the envelope until, with the help of the crowd, I actually sort of achieved the character I was looking for.
Mm.
I mean, they helped me. They helped me invent exotic Adrian Street.
Wow, that's incredible. And you mentioned the American Indian and how that inspired you, and I noticed that you did a painting of that, and that you've done other paintings. Is painting just something you've been doing for years, and something that you still do?
Um, I'm actually thinking about doing it again because, like, with all this lockdown and everything like that, I mean, Linda and I work out just about every day in our own gym, and we've got mountains all around us, and we like walking in the hills and everything like that. I always, I always walked in the hills when I was a young kid, looking for red Indians. I mean, I didn't realize that they didn't actually live in Wales. I knew they lived in the woods and forests and the mountains and all that kind of stuff. That's where I associated them with, and that's where I kept looking for them. But I've always loved walking in the mountains. I love living in Florida,
Mm.
but as much as I love the beaches and the sun, I love the hills more, especially the Welsh hills. The green, green grass of home, you can't beat it.
That's great. Out of curiosity, I'm just wondering, who taught you to wrestle? I mean, did you have someone who trained you? Did you just learn on your own? How did you go from just being a regular guy to transitioning into wrestling?
Well, if there's anything I can do better than wrestling, is fight.
Mm.
And when I say fight, I don't mean boxing, because I've boxed professionally, but I wasn't a good boxer. They have rules and things like that. And I've always said, don't like rules. I've always said, don't matter how you win as long as you cheat. So I thought I was a great wrestler because I could fight and everything like that. My dad had me out of school working in a coal mine when I was 15. I didn't like that too much. I ran away from home when I was 16. It's dark down there and I was made to be seen. I needed the spotlight. Anyway, I thought I was a good wrestler, but this is how I sort of found out the hard way that I had an awful lot to learn. I marched into the YMCA in London, and there were wrestlers there. And I imagine I'd already been to Dale Martin Promotions and asked them to sort of what the reaction I got from them is, you're too young and you're too small. Are you an amateur champion? I said, no, I don't want to be an amateur anything. I want to be a professional. I want to get paid for it. They said, go away and come back when you're a lot bigger, a lot older, and an champion. Anyway, I went in there. I went into the YMCA, walked past Roger Moore on my way to the mats. He he was just getting ready to. I think he'd actually just begun starring as Ivanhoe. Anyway, I walked past him and he said hello. I said hello. I thought, I know that guy from somewhere. And somebody told me, and that's Roger. Oh, yeah, he's going to be Ivanhoe. Because I like that too, like knights in shining armor with the crests and the color and all that kind of stuff. I love warriors, the ancient warriors that sort of dress for battle.
Mm.
Anyway, I went over on the mat and everything like that, and there was a guy called Alf Jacobs, another one called Frank Nottingham. Both amateurs, broken noses, big cauliflower ears. And I looked at them, scars all over them. And I thought to myself, yeah, well, I'm not going to look like that because I'm going to be such a good wrestler. Nobody's going to be able to do that to me. Anyway, I marched over and sort of said to him, who's going to wrestle me first? And one of them said, like, I'll give you a full round. And the other one walked off the mat and I said, don't go away because you're next. They turned me inside out, upside down. I didn't know if I was coming, going, or anything else. And I wouldn't. They said, have you had enough? No, no, no. Cut a long story short, I must have been there for an hour and they crucified me.
Mm.
Finally, I dragged myself off the mat, walked back to the dressing room, or staggered back to the dressing room. I passed Roger Moore again. He was playing handball against the wall. And he looked at me and said, you okay? And I've often wondered if he meant physically or mentally. Anyway, I got back in the dressing room and I just about couldn't stand up. I sat down on a chair in the dressing room. I wanted a shower to brighten myself up a little bit. And I was really gagging. I wanted to drink some milk. But I sat in the chair with my head on my lap and I just watched sweat run in all different directions out of my body. I didn't know people had that much sweat.
Mm.
Anyway, finally, I managed to get into the shower. That made me feel a little bit better. I went to the cafe there, got myself a pint of milk. I couldn't hold my head up. I was trying to hold my head with my hand because the muscles in my neck were that exhausted. I'm trying to hold my head up with one hand and pour milk into the side of my mouth with the other. Like milk all over my black with a t-shirt. Anyway, that was the beginning. But like I say, it was a lot harder than I ever imagined it was going to be because I thought I was a good fighter and a good wrestler. But I had an awful lot to learn. And if anybody was going to be put off, that was the time. Anyway, I'd lost my job at the time as well, which didn't make things any better. And with the last bit of money I had, I joined another club. So I was actually training for hours in the morning till the afternoon in a YMCA. And I walked all the way from there because I couldn't afford bus fare. I walked all the way across London to northwest London. That was closer to where I lived. And I joined the Foresters Club there. And the same thing happened there. I walked in there and said, I want to learn professional wrestling. But I mean, they were just amateur clubs. There was nothing for anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And the wrestling instructor there was quite an old man, but he turned me inside out. He said to me, you wrestle any way you want. He said, you wrestle professionally if you like, I'll wrestle amateur. I mean, I went in there and did all kinds of foul moves and things like that on him that I could possibly. But the thing is, he just absorbed it and he turned me inside out.
Mm.
And I mean, if if it was possible for me to be disillusioned, I'd have gone back home and gone back down the pit. But anyway, I just kept at it. One day down the YMCA, there was a guy called Chick Osmond. And he said, you want to learn to wrestle pro? I said, yeah. And he took me in a little room on the side. He said, we don't want anybody else to see what we're doing. He said, pro wrestling is everything we do is a secret. You don't sort of share this with anybody.
Mm.
And it was a small room, hardly room to put a mat down. And that's where I learned to wrestle first of all. But I still can't say I was any good because he said to me one day, Kitty said, um, he said, I want you to, he said, I want you to do me a favor. I said, what's that? He said, I'm wrestling for the independents. I didn't know there was any independent promotions in those days.
Mm-hmm.
I thought if you didn't wrestle for Dale Martins, that was it. I didn't even know that Dale Martins was a part of joint promotions, and there was loads of professional promotions up north in Britain and in the Midlands. I thought Dale Martins was it. It was them or nothing because that's all I'd ever heard of. Anyway, I learned a lot from Chick Osmond, and he said, like, will you do me a favor? He said, I've just got a contract with Dale Martins. He said, I've been wrestling for the independents. He said, and they got me booked all over the place. I don't want to let them. I don't want to let them down. He said, would you go and do them for me? Oh, I said, would I just? Anyway, he told me where to go and what to ask and all the rest of it. And I went to a place called New Addington, like on the outskirts of London. And they were running shows in the Addington Hotel. I went in there, introduced myself. Not only did they take me on, they sent me a poster. I was main event with a guy called Gentleman John Moran. First contest I ever had.
Mm.
Anyway, when I turned up that night, I've missed out actually when I was actually boxing. I was out of work, didn't have any money, and I started boxing on a fairground booth. First of all, I'd go up and challenge them and what have you. I was boxing anywhere between 4 and 7 times in one day.
Wow.
And I can't box. I was getting the crap knocked out of me. if I was lucky enough, I mean, I was going there and they were billing me with other people. And sometimes I'd box with somebody on the booth. And other times they'd say, okay, you both challenged him. Both the challenges and fight each other instead. But I was boxing anywhere between 4 and 7 times in one day while the fairground was in London. And I was getting £1 a fight. If I was lucky enough to get a 6-round match instead of a 3-round match, I'd get £3 for that instead of 1. But anyway, I'd never made so much money in my life. But I tell you, I mean, my nose was bleeding all the time. I had a headache all the time because, quite honestly, the way I was boxing, my opponent stood more chance of getting pneumonia from the wind that was blowing about than me actually hitting him. If I hit him, I'd knock him into the middle of next week. I had a hell of a punch, but wasn't very good at actually landing it on a target of somebody that was a skilled boxer. Quite honestly, the people in the front row were in more danger of getting hit than my opponent. But anyway, that was it. This is how I got my name actually. Two of my idols. One of my idols was Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and another one was Donnelly Jonathan. So the boxer asked me what the boxing promoter asked me what my name was so he could announce me. I said, Jonathan. He said, what's your first name, kid? So I said, Kid. I said, Kid. So does Kid Jonathan. Anyway, I quite liked that. I was announced as like Kid Jonathan, and I thought it Donnelly or Jonathan, like every time I was announced as a boxer. So when I went to see these promoters that Chick Osmond put me on to in New Addington, he said, well, what's your name? I said, Kid Jonathan. He said, you look like Tarzan. He said, I'll call you Tarzan Jonathan. I said, Kid Tarzan Jonathan. And I liked the sound of that because it was like Donnelly or Jonathan, but I was Kid Tarzan Jonathan. And that is where I was billed as, and that's where I wrestled at the first couple of years I was in the business. But anyway, like I said, they sent me a poster, and I was main event first time with this gentleman Jeff. I said his name a minute ago. Gentleman Jeff something anyway. But anyway, they said, do this and do that, like when you go in the ring. And I said, yeah, I'm not going to do that. That's silly. I didn't know what they were telling me. They were actually fixing the fight. And I'd never sort of, I'd never allow anybody to say the wrestling was fixed or fake or anything like that, even before I was a professional wrestler. Anyway, when we went in the ring, cut a long story short, we linked up and everything like that. I took him in an arm bar with my feet up in the air, drove this guy's face into the canvas, and dislocated his shoulder all in one move. So apparently I was supposed to do 7 rounds. It didn't last 7 minutes. I was in the room for about 2 minutes. Anyway, I walked back into the dressing room all triumphant. Like, what about that? When am I going to get a championship match? I mean, everybody in the dressing room looked at me like something they'd scraped off their shoe. And the promoter came over to me. He said, what the hell are you doing out there? He said, do you think people are going to pay good money to see a main event that lasts 2 minutes? Anyway, I did look good because I had a good physique. I've been working out with weight since I was 11 years of age. And he said to me, listen, kid, he said, you're going to have to help me out because he said, you've messed up Jock Moran. He said, I had him build all over the south of England. And they just phoned me from the hospital. He's got dislocated his shoulder. He won't be able to wrestle with me for a month. He said, you got to help me out. You're going to have to take his place. So I said, yeah, I'll do that. He said, but listen, you need to know how to work pro. So he gave me an address, Johnny Kilroy's gym in the Old Kent Road near the Elephant and Castle in London. He said, go there. He said, and tell him, and there's a message from me. Tell Johnny Kilroy to teach you to die. Because even if somebody hurt me, I wouldn't show it. You know what I mean? If I was having a fight with you and you punched me right in the nose and broke it, I'd laugh at you and say, is that the best you got? You're in trouble, mate. And you could black both my eyes. I'd say the same thing. I wouldn't show any pain or any distress because I would encourage you. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't do that. And it was so difficult to teach me to go, ouch, oh, ow, that hurt. Even sometimes if it didn't. But that's how I actually learned.
Wow, that's interesting. And you mentioned Nature Boy Buddy Rogers. So, what about him did you like so much? How did he influence you?
Well, the thing is, he influenced me because he was flamboyant. He wore like the fancy jackets and capes and that sort of thing. Um, he'd stride into the ring and he'd really get the attention and everything like that. He actually dressed up to do battle and made himself look fantastic. When I managed to get my break with Dale Martins, to be perfectly honest, they got TV and they were actually running 4,500 shows all over Britain, joint promotions, and they needed bodies. That's how I got my break. I persuaded myself, naturally, all of a sudden they contacted me and they wanted me to work for them, that they were doing it because I was so good. I wasn't. I was still bloody awful, even though I'd been wrestling for 2.5 years by then. Um, but anyway, the way I was to train, the way I was to sort of act and everything like that, they had a writer that did their programs and wrote in wrestling magazines called Charles Masko. Charles Masko was a Canadian who'd actually wrestled. He wrestled as Spider Maxo, and he knew Buddy Rogers. He'd wrestled on the same card as him. Buddy Rogers had wrestled in Canada. Charles Maskell had wrestled in the States on the same card. And he said that I reminded him of him. And the way I used to train as well, like not only in the gym on the weights, but whenever the wrestlers would go into the shows, they'd sort of go in on an old bus and everything like that. They'd stop at a Greasy Spoon restaurant and sort of go in there and eat like a lot of greasy rubbish. I wouldn't do that. While they were in that in the restaurant eating a lot of greasy rubbish, I would have already packed myself a nice lunch. So when they stopped, I'd get out of the bus and I'd walk as far as I could. And anyway, the fact that I worked that, the fact that I sort of trained that way and everything like that, and my general attitude reminded Charles Masko of Nature Boy Buddy Rogers, and he started billing me, writing when he wrote in the programs and magazines and everything like that. He started calling me Nature Boy Adrian Street.
Mm-hmm.
And I turned up one time. It was no time at all before I turned up. I'd always look at the posters if I could find the posters when I'd sort of get into a town to sort of see how they billed me and where I was billed and who I was actually wrestling with, because you'd never know that really until you arrived at the arena. All of a sudden, there's Nature Boy Adrian Street written on a poster. Oh my God, I couldn't believe it. I was absolutely thrilled. But I thought to myself, well, I can't go in there like this with the dark hair. And I'd wear like a sports jacket, usually like with the Welsh dragon on one side. I thought to myself, I've got to live up to that. I thought to myself, what has he got that I haven't got? Well, he had the blonde hair. I mean, my hair was already long, so that was okay. Like for the Tarzan sort of look. I thought, so what am I going to get? Anyway, what I did is I designed myself a powder blue jacket, powder blue velvet jacket, silver lame lining, trunks the same color to match, and I got myself a pair of custom-made wrestling boots, which are like a little bit higher than they used to wear in Britain, more the American style. And I already told you the rest of the story. When I turned up in a dressing room and dressed up like that, and the other wrestlers are going, "My God, like you're not going in the ring looking like that." And that's how it started.
Yeah, and so as your character evolved, you started to incorporate makeup into your attire and things like that. Did something in particular inspire that, or were you, like you mentioned earlier, trying to constantly push the envelope? Did you see that as a way to keep pushing it forward?
Well, when I realized that the crowd kept on going with like the effeminate thing, throwing the effeminate thing back at me, and like I said, I'd sort of skip about and everything like that, and sort of I'd find a way like where I'd pat my opponent on the backside, and that would really upset him, which I liked.
Mm-hmm.
And if he got me in a hold or anything like that, very often I'd give him a kiss, which made him sort of jump away and all that sort of thing. But I thought to myself, I can go a bit further. So first of all, I started putting just a little bit of makeup on my eyes. So when I was actually walking to the ring, people would go, "Is he wearing makeup?" So it wasn't really um, enough to sort of, yes, he is. And that would get the people talking.
Mm.
But then when they kind of got over that, I started making it a little bit more obvious and more obvious and more obvious. Um, and then there was a film. There was a series of films made about different sports called Sporting Tales. It came on TV. They did one on wrestling, and like one of the main characters in there was a guy they called Lucky Day that was actually based on me.
Hmm.
They actually based the character Lucky Day on me. And they couldn't find any wrestler that wrestled anywhere near like I did, like Lucky Day was supposed to, and did what he was supposed to do. So the BBC actually had to contact me and offer me a part in the movie. I'd already done a movie, Canterbury Tales.
Mm-hmm.
So they knew that I could actually act. So there was nobody else who could be Lucky Day except me. I made them pay me top dollar because I knew nobody else could do it. And anyway, they actually wanted an exaggeration of me.
Hmm.
So even though by that time I'd sort of started wearing obvious makeup on my eyes, even sticking sequins and rhinestones on my face with spirit gum, I'd never actually gone as far as wearing lipstick or anything like that is concerned. I mean, that was too effeminate even for me at that time. But the thing is, in the film, it was called A Drink Out of the Bottle. As Lucky Day, they actually wanted it exaggerated even more. So there was lipstick and even more elaborate makeup. And the thing is, after I did that movie and it came out, everybody expected that to have actually done less would have been disappointing for them. You know, they went there wanting to be shocked.
Mm.
They come to the right place. So that's how it went. I just kept pushing the envelope from there. A lot of people told me I was too small to be a professional wrestler.
Mm.
And that was when I started putting feathers in my hair, like the Red Indians that I sort of liked, with the makeup and everything like that, like the war paint.
Yeah.
And not only that, putting the feathers, putting my hair out and tying it up and putting feathers in there actually made me look taller than I was, which I needed to do to make sure, especially when I decided to go to the States, because everybody said, like, you can't wrestle in the States. It's a land of giants. They're enormous. They're enormous out there and everything like that. So I thought to myself, what can I do? So I emulated the Red Indians again and the ancient warriors that I'd always admired.
Mm-hmm.
They all, I mean, you get the Greek hoplite, the Spartan hoplite warrior. They wore armor that made their chest and shoulders look bigger. They wore helmets with horsehair crests. It was like 2 feet tall on top of them. You get a warrior that was 5 feet tall. You'd be fighting away and turn around and look at him, and what you saw was everything, including 2 foot. All of a sudden, this 5 foot warrior looked like he was 7 foot tall. The
Mm.
Red Indians with their war bonnets looked twice the size they actually were when they were in battle. So it's what I did to sort of help make myself up. I even got my shoes built up like 2 or 3 inches. So with that, with my shoes built up, all of a sudden, instead of looking at my opponent's nose, I was almost looking at him eye to eye.
Mm. Very smart. And you were glam rock before glam rock even existed, and your makeup, your attire, it helped inspire David Bowie, Elton John, and others. How did it make you feel knowing that you had this kind of influence on, major icons in pop culture?
Um, it's good, and the thing is, I can't sort of say it was like absolutely a one-way street. When I was in the States, I was asked many times during interviews, did I invent British glam rock? And my response to that was, no, I didn't invent it, but we sure borrowed a lot from each other, which we did. Mark Bolan, for instance, in an interview, they said, where did you get your ideas from for your makeup and your costumes and all that kind of stuff. And he actually said, from watching Adrian Street Wrestling.
Wow,
Mm.
that's great. And have you ever had any, gay, transsexual, or transvestite fans let you know you inspired them or you made them proud, especially at a time when, what you were doing was not commonplace?
Well, the thing is, David Bowie had that very effeminate sort of thing. And I mean, he was gay. Um, so's Elton John. Now, Elton John, I actually got a suit that I've still got. I got married in it, funnily enough. But I actually had this made. I actually had this suit made to measure in a boutique in Chelsea, Kings Road, Chelsea, called Granny Takes a Trip. I've still got the suit and I can still get it on.
Mm,
That Elton John actually tried to buy it.
mm,
Now, I designed it, and while they were making it, I had a tour in Africa, so I was in Africa wrestling. While I was there, Elton John went into Granny Takes a Trip. He saw this and was waiting for me when I came back. Oh, and he wanted to buy it, and he offered the guy all kinds of money. And the guy said the guy's name was Lee. He was an American, funnily enough. The guy who ran Granny Takes a Trip in Kings Road. Um, he said, I daren't tell you that. He said, do you know who that belongs to? Adrian Street. And Elton John knew exactly who I was.
mm,
In actual fact, he used to go to a club called the Cromwellian that actually belonged to professional wrestlers.
hmm,
He used to go there, so did uh, the Scottish guy, what's his name? Long John Baldry used to go there.
mm-hmm.
A pile of them used to go to this place. So I'd seen them there, and they'd seen me there. They knew exactly who I was. Anyway, Elton John couldn't buy my suit, so he got one made. It was very similar, but instead of Birds of Paradise down the sleeves and down the trouser leg, he had musical notes, which is more befitting for his lifestyle. So yeah, I did inspire a lot of them. I had a lightning on my face long before David Bowie started doing it.
Mm.
In fact, I've got photographs of David Bowie where he's actually wearing red wrestling boots.
Hmm.
And when I was a Hell's Angel, I had a pair of boots that myself and my partner used to wear that were exactly the same as that.
Wow. And did you ever have a situation where, a fan or a wrestler threatened or assaulted you because of your feminine persona? I mean, I assume not everyone was accepting, right? You must have had some tough situations there.
Especially in Liverpool Stadium. I used to have to fight my way into the ring. So you can imagine what it was like when I turned the local hero inside out and try to get out of the ring again. My oldest son, Adrian, well, both my sons actually are into music. My youngest son, um, is a drummer. I've never actually heard him in real life, but he's supposed to be one of the best. My oldest son calls himself Adrian Stranick because he's had a lot of flack. I mean, his name is actually Adrian Street,
Mm.
same as mine. That's my real name.
Yeah.
But he changed his name to Stranick because he didn't want people to think that he was getting where he was getting on my coattails.
Hmm.
But not only that, he had so much trouble with people who wanted to have a go at me. And he's completely different than I am. He's got different temperament. I could be very aggressive. Yeah, I mean, nobody can threaten me or nobody can push me. You push me, I'll push you back. Only a lot harder. That's the way I am. But my oldest son, Adrian, he says to me, Dad, he said, I would have followed in your footsteps. He said, and become a professional wrestler. He said, but the last time I had a fight, I was awarded a Nobel Peace Prize.
That's great.
Yeah. And I'm proud of him. I mean, the thing is, he's following his dream. He's doing what he set out to do, and he's determined to do it, and he's still doing it. I mean, he's got a gig somewhere tonight, even though
Wow.
they're not, yeah, a safe gig.
That's great. And so,
Yeah.
something you've talked about before, just curious about it. Why do you think it's important to have a certain level of mystery when it comes to your character in wrestling? Why do you think that benefited you so much?
I think that mystery and contrast is something that something that gets attention and something that makes people. I would never put myself in a box. Elton John's come out of the closet. Yes, I'm gay. Various ones have come out. But the thing is, a lot of people might have thought it, but now he's come out and said, okay, he put himself in a box. Everybody's accepted it. That's what he is. Everybody talks about it. Hey, do you know Elton John said he was gay? Yeah, all right, that's the end of the story. But if you portray something as strongly as I did, but then do something entirely different, then you're not putting yourself in a box. And that's where the contrast came in. I come in the ring looking like a fairy or like a flower thing or something like that. And skip around the ring, pout and everything like that. I couldn't look more feminine. But then when it actually starts, you're completely different than that. I'll turn them inside out and upside down. It's funny because there was a um, announcer that kind of put it in a nutshell for me. In other words, so that's good. That guy's got up. And it went something like this. I'm making my entrance to the ring, and this announcer's there, like announcing what's going on in the ring and all the rest of it. Wow, ladies and gentlemen, here comes Adrian Street. Now, damn me, that Adrian Street, when he comes to the ring, damn me if he doesn't look like a French poodle. Just like a French poodle. But damn me, when he gets in the ring and that bell rings and he gets out there, he's all business. That French poodle turns into an American pit bull. And that is it. I thought to myself, he summed it up as well as I've ever really summed up. Contrast and mystery, whereas Linda came in great for that.
Yeah.
Not only did she help me cheat, which I didn't need to because I could turn him inside out without it, but it added that sort of thing. It also gave my opponent a little bit of an excuse so I could fight him again.
Hmm.
I'm okay, I've turned him inside out, upside down. But Linda helped me a little bit. What if Linda wasn't there? Or what if somebody on the other side, what if the other guy got a valet or something to stop Linda from doing it? Then maybe he'd stand a chance.
Mm.
Believe me, he wouldn't stand a chance. But I like to put that little bit of doubt in there because it made it more interesting. People
Yeah.
don't really want to see a bad guy that they know is going to turn the other guy inside out and smash him to pieces.
Yeah.
I'd like to put that little bit of doubt in their mind. But that was also something to talk about. Well, he's a puff, he's a gay, he's a fag. Yeah, but if he is, what is he doing with that girl? What is he doing with that woman? Why has he got a woman he's going around with all the time? So the more different angles and the more spanners I could throw in the into the thing and get people talking about different aspects, the more attention I was getting. And like I say, I do like attention.
Well, clearly that worked. What was it like having your wife with you, um, on the road? I mean, working together day in, day out. Was that a great experience?
I love Linda to bits. We've been together since 1969. We didn't actually get married until 2005. We
Mm.
had a very long engagement. We've been together almost 24/7. Now, she had to go for a checkup to the hospital. What day was it? Friday. I couldn't stand. They don't allow you. They wouldn't allow me to go with her. Otherwise, I would have. I hate hospitals. Can't stand hospitals. I got a phobia for hospitals. But I
Mm.
would have gone with her anyway, like just to be with her. But with this nonsense that's going on at the moment, I wasn't allowed to go. I couldn't wait for her to get back home again. I don't like it if she's away from me for an hour.
Mm. That's great that you guys have such a wonderful relationship. And
Yeah.
what are your favorite memories, if you have any in particular, of wrestling in the UK? Is there anything that you always think of as like, your just favorite moment?
Yeah, beating the crap out of Jimmy Savile and putting him out of the business that she should never been in the first place. Jimmy Savile was like a DJ in this country. I don't know if you're familiar with him,
Hmm.
but he was a DJ. Jim will fix it. Jim will fix it, and he had a very high profile and everything like that. He did all kinds of things. He trained with the Royal Marines. Did all kinds of tough guy sort of stuff and everything like that to prove what a man he was. But he was a child molester.
Mm.
Um, they didn't find out until years later that he was a child molester. Now, I knew that he was into very young girls because he admitted it, but we didn't realize how young.
Hmm.
I mean, young children. But anyway, I didn't think he should be in the business anyway because he was not a wrestler. Now, we're wrestling at Nottingham Ice Rink, and I was wrestling against the world champion. It was a non-title match. I was wrestling against the world champion George Kidd, the best technical wrestler that's ever set foot in the ring, as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I'm a great technical wrestler, but you know why? I learned most of it from George Kidd.
Mm.
He's forgotten things that I don't know about. He was that good. George Kidd was absolutely fantastic. But I actually beat him in 7 minutes and put him in Nottingham Infirmary. He had to go to hospital, and I challenged him to put his title on the line for next time. So next time George Kidd was going to be there, obviously he had to heal up. So he missed the next show. I was on the next show, and who did they put me on with? Jimmy Savile.
Mm.
A bloody DJ that shouldn't be in the business as far as I was concerned. to make it even worse, he went in the ring, dressed like me, and started doing all the stuff that I was doing. He made me mad. I turned him inside out. I ripped him to pieces.
Mm.
He never ever wrestled professionally again after I finished with him. That was good.
Sounds like it. And what inspired you to, or what made you decide to go to the States and say, okay, I'm going to go over and wrestle in the United States?
What decided me to go was Joint Promotion sold up to Hearst Park Syndicate, and they put a guy called Max Crabtree in charge of it because Hearst Park Syndicate didn't know anything about wrestling promotions, but they bought it. They put him in charge, and he brought his big fat blubbery brother out of retirement. He hadn't wrestled for 10 years. They brought him out of retirement, and Max decided he was going to make his brother, Shirley Crabtree, into a star. They fixed all his fights. They had him beating two people at one time sometimes. Big villains and everything like that. That the people had never seen getting beaten, one, let alone two. And they actually made him into like a world beater with fixed fights. And they brought another person in there, like giant haystacks, 6'11" and weighed about 500 pounds. Honestly, I mean, these guys were flaming useless. They're like walking, talking waterbeds. You push him on his arse, he'd rock himself to sleep trying to get up. But I found, I mean, they actually made people believe that they were wrestlers, and they weren't for a short while. I mean, eventually it backfired, and they even lost television because they lost the audience and people didn't believe it anymore.
Mm.
But like I say, you can fool all the people some of the time. And that was a period I was always so proud to be a professional wrestler in Britain. I'd achieved my dream and all the rest of it. All of a sudden, they got these characters like main event that people are actually believing in them. I became ashamed. I was always proud to say, yes, I'm a professional wrestler. All of a sudden, they've got that stigma and everything like that, and I wasn't. I decided to go to the States to get away from it. Because the thing is, they still had good wrestling. They had the territories in those days. Now, whereas when I started my career, everybody said you're too young and you're too small. Now they told me you're too old and too small. Because I was 40 years of age before I ever set foot in the States.
Hmm.
But they said, like, when if you don't want to, if you're ashamed of British wrestling, why don't you just retire? Damn, I hadn't even started, as far as I was concerned. And they said to me, it's a land of giants out there. You're too small, you're too old. Retire if you don't want to wrestle in this country. Anyway, I went out to the States. And like I say, they were giants. That's why I sort of wore my hair even taller, like the feathers in my hair even taller. I built my shoes up even higher.
Mm.
But all the same, that was it. And I found myself in a dressing room with some guy. He'd come over. He'd be a foot taller than me and about twice my body weight. He'd come over and he said, like, we're wrestling each other tonight. I'd say, yeah, that's right. He'd say, how can a big guy like me lose to a little guy like you? I said, don't worry about it, mate, because when we get in there, I'm going to show you. I did. I had a reputation for being a bully and being a nasty piece of work only if a guy had that attitude.
Yeah.
If I was wrestling with you and everything like that, you had a good attitude, I wouldn't hurt you out duly. I mean, the thing is, you'd been in a fight, but I mean, I wouldn't sort of purposely sort of really knock the crap out of you or anything like that. I just do as much as I needed to do to win the match, and that would be it. But you show me some attitude, mate, and I tell you what, I'd show you pain. I would show you pain. So, I mean, the thing is, when I was out there first, I got that thing. A lot of people, Mick Foley, for instance,
Mm.
he did an interview. I mean, when he was interviewed for that um, documentary that Joanne, you may be pretty but beautiful, that one,
Hmm.
he's actually in it. And he said, Adrian's one of these legendary figures that can hurt you real bad, real quick.
Mm. That's true. And one of the wrestlers who you had a feud with was the Macho Man Randy Savage. What was it like working with him?
Randy, Run, how can I say? If Randy was hung for being a good wrestler, he died innocent. But he was a hell of an athlete and he could look after himself. But I liked wrestling with him. I liked wrestling with him actually. I'd give him the excuse and everything like that. I made more of him than he was. I mean, the thing is, if I go in the ring and make a guy look bad, which I could, I could have made Randy look awful if I wanted to.
Hmm.
I could have showed him up as a non-wrestler that he was. He could fight, he could look after himself, but as far as wrestling and holds and maneuvers and throws and stuff like that's concerned, he had an awful lot to learn. But I would go in there and I would get Linda involved as well. I mean, I don't know if you've seen different films. I mean, Linda would kick the crap out of him. I'll tell you what, Linda's a nasty piece of work. She doesn't have the restraint that I've got. Because when she gets stuck into somebody, I mean, she will hurt you.
Yeah.
But the thing is, the people believed in Randy Savage. That was great. That was half the battle. People really believed he was a world beater. So I would make him look like a world beater. Because the thing is, look at this. This is my psychology. If I make a guy look like the best wrestler in the world and I lose to him, at least I've been beaten by the best wrestler in the world.
Mm.
If I make him look like the best wrestler in the world and I beat him, which I usually did, then how does it make me look? Now, if I make my opponent look like crap and I beat him, what have I beaten? If I make my opponent look like crap and he beats me,
Yeah, absolutely. That makes perfect sense. Speaking of beating opponents, you won the Mid-South Television Championship by kissing Terry Taylor and then rolling him up for the pin, which is pretty incredible. What inspired that finish to the match?
um, to give him an excuse, he was a good wrestler, actually. Um, he was a good wrestler. He had moves. I wanted to make him look as good as I could. And what inspired me to do that was I could have gone in there, out wrestled him, not given him anything. I could have blocked everything he tried to do quite easily and beaten him. And like I say, he wouldn't have looked that clever. Now, if I can go in there and let him have the speaking part, and it looks like he could beat me, then I do something like that to sort of out of the blue to take him off. I'm giving him an excuse. People are going to pay good money to see him fight me again, to see if he gets his revenge.
Yeah, that makes sense. And then Austin Idol was another person who you wrestled. What are your memories of working with him?
Oh, he is totally useless. He is totally useless. He's a bodybuilder with a big mouth. He can talk a good fight. But when I finished with him, he was bloody speechless. No, I didn't like him. In actual fact, when I got into the territory, he knew that he was going to be wrestling with me, and he'd heard that I could be tasty if I wanted to be.
Mm-hmm.
He called me up before I had my first match for that promotion. He called me up, and if you knew how tight this guy was with money, he would take the caffeine out of your coffee if he could. He actually called me up, took me to see a movie, took me and Linda to see a movie, and took me out to dinner. And started talking to me about like what we could do. And it was like, oh, you know what I mean? I'm the champion. You know, you have a close match with me and everything like that, and you can keep chasing me for the title. I said, I've got a better idea. I said, if I can beat you, I will, then you can chase me. He showed off that much about it. I give him a good flaming hiding, and he actually lived in that territory, right?
Mm-hmm.
He actually lived there. This is where he lived. He lived in the middle of that territory. He actually left the territory after he wrestled me twice.
Wow.
He never wrestled for that promotion again.
Crazy.
I took the title off him. He had a return match, and I showed him just how close. How can I say? I give him a bit to show the people, like, not to show him entirely, for my own sake. But that was my own ego, not anything to do with him. I didn't like him. Didn't like him. Still don't like him. I wouldn't piss on him if he was on fire.
Well, that's a good way to summarize that. You have these incredible photos of yourself at the coal mine with your makeup and your attire, with your father and the coal miners looking on. What inspired these photos to be taken?
I'll tell you what inspired me is the fact that I didn't get on with my father. He threatened me with the coal mine from the time I was a child. Let me just give him an excuse. I never met my father. I was 6 months of age when my father was called up in the army during the war. So obviously, I mean, he remembered me being 6 months old, but I didn't remember him being 6 months old. I always wanted a father. I always wanted him. He was. He got to be a prisoner of war. Spent 3.5 years in a prison camp with the Japanese. And my only excuse for him was he had a really bad time with him. He's written a book actually that I've. In the first book that I wrote, I've written 7 books on my life story.
Mm-hmm.
And I've given him the excuse of the way he was treated, working on the other railway of death in Sumatra. He was taken prisoner in Java. But anyway, he had a really, really, really rough time. And when he came back, he had I don't know how many tropical diseases and everything like that, malaria, beriberi, dysentery, all kinds of really bad illnesses. So he's in and out of hospital to sort of start off with. And I couldn't even get him to talk to me when he came back first. But anyway, finally, when he did, I found he didn't like me for whatever reason. I was a lovely little kid. I was so pretty. I met him first about 2 weeks before my 5th birthday, but he never ever liked me. Now, I had a brother who was 6 years older than me, couldn't do any wrong. Never mind what he did, it was okay with my father. My sister, I got a younger sister who was born after my father came back from the war. So my brother's 6 years older than me. My sister is 6 years younger. They both had a marvelous childhood, as far as my father was concerned. I had the worst childhood you could possibly imagine. So my father, for instance, I'll tell you kind of tricks he'd play. I had 3 kittens. I built a little hut that a cat went into and laid 3 kittens there, and then she went away. So I became the cat's mother. I fed him and everything like that. My older brother fell in love with a tabby one. My sister fell in love with a little ginger one. And I had a black one. I called the black one Sharka, after my favorite Zulu. My father said, you can't keep 3 kittens. We can't have 3 kittens in the house. He said, I'm going to drown 2 of them. And he asked me to choose which 2 they were going to be. Would I choose the one I'd given to my brother? Would I choose the one I'd given to my sister? Or would I choose my own to live? The other 2 had to die.
Oh.
So even if I chose my own, I'd still have to choose between my brother and sister. And he put me in that position.
Terrible.
Bearing in mind now that my father was a religious maniac. A so-called Christian. Anyway, I wouldn't and I couldn't choose. So he dug a hole down the bottom of the garden and he said, that's for the kittens. He said, you choose. He kept telling me. Anyway, I wouldn't choose. I couldn't choose. I mean, could you?
No.
Could you?
Mm-mm.
Anyway, I came home from school one day, and my father was home early. He was home on his own because my mother worked as well at the time. And he's there looking through the window. Didn't say anything when I came in. So you know the way you sort of like somebody's looking at something. I kind of I kind of came over and every now and then I'm looking through the window, not knowing what he was looking at. All of a sudden I noticed that the gravy tub was filled in.
Mm.
Bear in mind now I'm about 11 and 12 years of age at the time. I ran out of the house into the shed where I kept the street kittens. My father wouldn't let them in the house. I ran there, they were gone. I rushed back in the house fire coming out of my eyes and everything like that. And my father, bearing in mind I'm 11 or 12, my father's standing there now with his fists up. Come on, come and get it. I said, why do you do that? He said, you wouldn't choose. He said, you killed them. He said, because you wouldn't choose. I said, you were going to kill two of them anyway. He said, you wouldn't choose. And I said to him, who the fuck do you think you are, King Solomon? I mean, there's a story in the Bible, killed King Solomon. There was a woman, two women who had babies. One of them lost their baby,
Mm-hmm.
and both of them claimed him. And he said, "Oh, I'll have your baby killed unless you can choose." And the
Mm-hmm.
mother said, the real mother said, "Okay, let her have it, like rather than lose a baby." So I mean, him being such a rabid Christian, I knew that would get to him.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, "Who the do you think you are, King Solomon?" And he was still beating on me while my mother came in and stopped him from beating me up anymore. But that's just an example.
Yeah. Wow. And so the photos at the coal mine, you just wanted to basically, that was your way of saying, F you to them, like you thought I couldn't make it. Well, here you go.
It was that or that. That's the British version. That's the American. It was that. It was that. What actually happened was, well, I always said I wanted to be a wrestler, and that's all I was on about. At that time, I'd never actually seen. Um, it was about that time I actually saw my first pro match, even though I already knew I wanted to be a wrestler. But all I knew about wrestling is what I read in the American wrestling magazines.
Mm-hmm.
The time when I could have told you the name of every prominent American wrestler, I couldn't have told you the name of one British wrestler. But anyway, I was going to be a wrestler. And all of them, I mean, all the coal miners, it was the same deal. You can't be a wrestler, you're not big enough. If you see the size of those guys, they'd rip you off, they'd throw you away and all the rest of it. And I got that off all of them. Anyway, I went to London when I when my summer holidays came around. I went to London, found myself an apartment to live, and got myself a job a job in a nut and bolt factory.
Mm-hmm.
So when I came back, I started working my notice, 2 weeks notice. In the meantime, I said to everybody, I'm going to London. Yeah, you're not going to London. I said, I'm going to London. Anyway, when I learned that I had given my notice and I was going, I got it from everybody. You call me a wrestler. You'll be back. You'll be back. I bet you don't last 2 weeks. Anyway, it's the day I'm going, and we're all at the bottom of the pit. And it's like 2:30 hooter blows to let everybody out. Because until then, empty, like full trucks are going up the pit, and the empty ones are coming down. The coal mines are like this, you know what I mean? The empties come down and the full ones go up.
Mm-hmm.
And they keep doing that and everything all the time. Then finally, when the 2 o'clock hooter blows, there's no more buggers on there. The afternoon shift miners come down, and the ones that have finished their shift go up. We're all there now waiting for the hooter to blow so we can go up the pit, and it's going to be my last time. And they're all standing there on the bottom like a big pile of them. Are you going to London then? Are you street? I said, yeah. You think you're going to be a wrestler? Yep. Yeah, right. They start walking around like a chip. Yeah. Like, you know what I mean? They'll tear you to pieces and everything like that. My father's standing there. And they said to him, his name was Emrys. Emrys, what do you think? Do you think you'll make it in London? My father said, no, he'll be back. He likes his mother's cooking too much. And he can't be a wrestler. He's too small. So, a number of years later, I won. Not only was I a wrestler, and not only was I big enough, I actually won the European middleweight title. The newspapers got onto it. It was a big deal to win a title like that. The People newspaper got onto it, and they wanted to do a 3-week story on my life, culminating with me and the belt. When they told me that they wanted to take a photograph of the belt, I said, yeah, you can take a photograph of me with the belt, but it's going to be what I want it to be. So that was it. I knew what time my father came up the pit, 2:30. He came up, there was miners before, they're off and everything like that.
Mm-hmm.
When they came up, and my father was there, I said, you come off. I said, you don't stay where you are. And you can see the other ones like all looking through. I said, don't you set foot off here. I said, stay where you are. And they're all looking to see what's going on. My father's standing there like, what's going on? That was a photograph.
It was great. It was just amazing. And I'm sure many people wonder, why didn't you join the WWE back in the 1980s? Did you ever have the opportunity to join? Were you interested, not interested? Just curious.
When I joined the WWE, no, I would have stayed there for the rest of my career. I earned more money for them than I did for anybody, but I'd already fallen out. Dory Funk Jr. actually brought me in to the WWE. No, WCW rather. No, the WWE wanted me,
Mm-hmm.
but quite honestly, I think I was too good a wrestler for them.
Mm.
I was too good a wrestler. They want, yeah. I was thinking of WCW when they asked me that question. WWE decided they wanted me. Great, yeah. Wow. They were paying more money than anybody at the time. I could wrestle for them and be rich. Then it was explained to me, oh, we don't want you as a wrestler, we want you as a manager.
Hmm.
Okay, still earn good money. I don't mind. And the chances are, like somewhere down the line, I'll wrestle. Managers do from time to time. Okay, yeah, great. They said, listen, we're gonna bring a British team over, and we're gonna call them the British Skinheads. We want you as an over-the-top neo-Nazi manager. I said, forget it. I'm too proud of my own legacy. Like, if I'd done that, it would have been like towards the end of my career. What would be what? I mean, if anybody thought of Adrian Street, what would they think of?
Yeah, probably that.
Hey, what would you think of that? And I'm not a racist. I don't believe in all this BLM sort of stuff because, as far as I'm concerned, they're racists. All life matters. Doesn't matter what you are. I've never been a racist. Like I said, I love the Zulus with their flamboyant gear. I love the Red Indians with their gear. There's all races in the earth, on the earth. I love animals, and I'm glad there's such a variety of animals. There's zebras and there's rhinos and there's crocodiles, and I love it. Butterflies, lizards, anything. I love it. I also love the fact that there's different races on Earth. Wouldn't it be a lot more boring if we were all exactly the same?
Absolutely.
Even if you're all perfect like me, it'd still be boring. Yeah, I know I'm not perfect. The only thing that stopped me from being perfect is my modesty. I'm too modest for my own good.
Someone or a wrestler who came out in the '90s who was totally inspired by you was Gold Dust. A Dusty Rhodes son, Dustin, decided to, take on this persona of Gold Dust with the long blonde wig and the robe, and obviously being flirtatious like your character. What are your thoughts on Gold Dust? Did you think it was well done?
Not really, no. But I mean, the thing is, Gold Dust was a little kid who would come to the matches sometimes when I was wrestling with his father down in Florida when I was working for Eddie Graham's promotion. And I've always said I was wrestling with his dad, and Dustin was like a little kid sitting in the front row. Who was he most impressed with, me or his father? His dad got to dislike me very much because I was calling Busty Rose. Busty Rose, the American Queen.
That's great. So you mentioned, well, before we started this interview, about how you overcame throat cancer. Tell me about that. I mean, what was that experience like, and how are you doing now?
The thing is, I am a chronic non-smoker. Can't stand to even see people smoke, let alone have them near me. Somebody smokes near me, I could do them all kinds of violence very happily, never mind who they are. You don't smoke near me. And if you want to be my friend, you don't even smoke where I can see you. If this thing had started and you were puffing on a cigarette, I don't know whether you smoke or not. But if you were, I'd say to put that fucking thing out. I do not like it because the thing is, in the business I was in, unfortunately, the worst part of professional wrestling is they allowed people to smoke in the arenas. For most of my career, I've been main event, and main event goes on last or nearly last. So by the time I actually went in the ring, there'd be like a blue haze hanging over the ring. In Britain, for instance, we'd have matches that'd be anything from 30 to 60 minutes. I've been in 90-minute matches. So you can imagine you're going in there and you're using every ounce of like what you've got. You're breathing. I mean, you're breathing smoke into your stomach, let alone anything else. An awful lot of wrestlers smoked. Wrestlers from Wigan, I mean, their style of wrestling was fantastic. If you knew a guy, those wrestling stars came from Britain, came from the States over to Britain. They'd want it written into their contract that they wouldn't have to wrestle with Bert Azaragi or anyone from Wigan. They want it written into their contract because the Wigan wrestlers were that tasty. But I'll tell you what, 80% of them were chain smokers, in spite of the fact they were fantastic wrestlers. So, I mean, the thing is, I'd be on the bus, 2/3 or 3/4 of them would be smoking.
Mm.
In the dressing room, 2/3, 3/4 of them would be smoking. You'd walk out into the arena and the damn thing was blue, you know what I mean? So the thing is, I figure I got cancer from secondhand smoke. Never did like it. But anyway, it got to the stage where I start coughing blood up. It got that bad that I would actually go to the hospital. This is in the States, in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And they would actually burn like the back of my throat and say, like, oh, there you are, we've cauterized it, or like whatever it is. I'd been bleeding before I got back to my car. And this went on for a while and it got worse and worse and bloody worse. It got Linda drive me to the thing and have a bucket on my lap and the bottom of the bucket would be full of blood by the time I got to the hospital. But then he cauterized it. Sometimes I'd be bleeding before I got back to the car. And that's the way it was going. So one morning, I got up, cough, cough, cough. Then they give me my bucket. She said, I got to get you to the hospital again. I said, don't give me that. Give me a big pile of tissue, kitchen tissue. I had a big mountain of kitchen tissue that on my lap instead of the bucket. I just let myself bleed and cough into that. This was an entrance. When I walked into the emergency thing and everything like that, this thing was out. I mean, the armful of tissue I had was absolutely covered in blood. It was only then they took it seriously when they could see how much blood I was losing.
Mm.
They took me back and everything like that. They brought a doctor in, Dr. Lurton. He actually diagnosed it, and he said, "You've got a thing back there." He said you've got a thing in your throat because of golf ball. Anyway, when I went in there, like for him to give me the news and everything like that, this is Dr. Lurton. Mr. Street, he said, I've got some very bad news for you. He said, you've got 2 strains of very malignant cancer. He said, I'm going to give it to you straight. You're not going to make it out of this. I suggest you go home and put your affairs in order. So I said to him, I'm not dying yet, mate. There's too many people in the world I haven't pissed off yet. And I think that is the attitude that made the difference between me going home and putting my affairs in order and dying. I thought to myself, I'm not going to do that. It's a bloody bad career move. So I decided I wasn't going to die, and I didn't.
Great. But I also read just recently that you also nearly died during a colonoscopy. What happened there?
Um, Another stupid doctor. Um, I I'd had um, my eyes were starting to cloud up, and apparently, like it was like the beginning of cataracts and stuff like that. So I
Mm.
decided that I wanted um, that sort of lens thing and everything like that. I've had lenses, but I've got really good eyesight now. But it was getting to be like, first of all, it was one eye started to sort of shade up a little bit. I closed one eye and it looked, everything was really bright. I closed the other eye and everything went dark. I could see, but like not that sort of marvelous. So anyway, I decided to get that done. So I got one of them done, and then I said like, I said, well, I can sort of more or less. I said I can see okay with the other one. I don't need it to get done. But the funny thing is, the one I got done was so clear and everything like that that it just didn't seem to be in sync somehow. You know what I mean? And it wasn't until I got that one done I realized that the other one wasn't wasn't as good as I thought it was. So I decided to get that done as well. I find that American doctors are really sort of happy to give people prescriptions and stuff like that. I don't take painkillers. I'll sort of stand. Painkillers are really not very good. They mess with you. You know what I mean? And the thing is, I've seen too many American wrestlers. We hurt, believe you me. When we get home, we get up in the morning. You get up in the morning. You got pains in places you didn't know you had.
Mm.
So it's easy to see why a lot of professional wrestlers get hooked on painkillers. I won't take painkillers. I'll talk to the pain. Hey, if I get a pain and everything like that that's really bad, I'll talk to it and say, hey, is that the best you got? Come on. And I actually will it to hurt more. That's my way of coping with it.
Mm.
But anyway, um, I decided to get the other one done. So my eyes would be sort of perfect. It just didn't feel right. Like having one eye that was 20/20 and the other one like whatever it was.
Mm.
But anyway, they won't do that unless your own doctor signs that you're in sort of good health and everything like that. My doctor, for whatever reason, he said, I can't believe, he said, what great condition you're in and everything like that. He said, but the only thing I can think of is, he said, you haven't had a colonoscopy. I said, yeah, I don't want one. I know I'm all right. I do everything that to ward that sort of thing off. No, he said, I'm not going to sign that thing for you to get your eye done. He said, unless you have a colonoscopy. Well, the thing is, I'd only just had anesthetic for that. You're not supposed to have anesthetic within such a short space of time.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that. My bloody doctor did. I mean, surely. Everybody told me that after, and he insisted I did it. With the result, I actually flatlined. For 7 seconds.
Wow.
And Linda was in the next cubicle. I mean, I didn't know what was going on, but they're saying like, "We're losing him, we're losing him, we're losing him," and she's sitting like she's sitting 5 feet away.
Hmm.
They actually called for an ambulance. I'm in a hospital, right? They called for an ambulance and rushed me at the most 200 yards to another part of the hospital in an ambulance. I get a bill for that. They wanted nearly £800 for taking me in an ambulance to a different part of the hospital. Oh, it's an ambulance. But that's the way they are. But anyway, that was it. I actually flatlined for 7 seconds. So I've been dead.
Yeah. You beat it twice.
No bright lights, no Jesus or anything else. No, just nothing.
Wow, that's crazy. I saw in the WWE documentary about you that you're a coach at their NXT UK Performance Center. What has that experience been like for you?
I tell you what, they've got. I thought I'd seen it all in this business. I mean, I've been a pro now. What, 63 years? I've been a pro. I thought I'd seen it all and then some. I tell you what, the details that they've actually got. And the thing is, I've been a knocker of the WWE or whatever they call themselves. I've been a knocker and not sort of happy with that promotion for a long, long time. But they're doing it right because they've got people like John Moss. They've got people like Dave Taylor,
Mm,
Johnny Saint, Steven Regal.
hmm
Those are the people that they've got looking after them. And they've got everything. They've got specialists, they've got doctors, they've got massage therapists, they've got exercise gurus and stuff like that to put them through their paces. Linda and I spent some time at their facility up in um, the facility up north of London.
hmm
It is absolutely amazing. Absolutely amazing. I mean, they're actually paying their students to learn.
Wow.
And I tell you what, they've got some. When I was up there, they had some talent. Some of the girl wrestlers. I was very. I don't impress easy, but I was impressed.
Wow. So, how did this opportunity come about? Who reached out to you?
The WWE.
Was it Steven Regal or was it a different person?
Triple H.
Oh, okay.
Triple H and Steven Regal.
That's great. And what are your thoughts on Steven Regal as a wrestler? I mean, I always thought he was one of the best. Did you have any
Ec-
opinion on him?
Excellent, excellent. I mean, the three British wrestlers that they've got, Stephen Regal, uh, Dave Taylor, Johnny Saint. They couldn't do better. Then there's Johnny Moss. They couldn't do better. They couldn't do. I couldn't turn around and say like, oh, if that's so and so, it'd be better. I can think of a lot of wrestlers that would really benefit it.
Hmm.
I mean, myself and Linda, for instance, we would really benefit it if we worked for them more regularly. There's a lot. Um, Tony St. Clair, for instance.
So I also want to ask you about your album. You know, the Shake, Wrestle, and Roll. What inspired you to record that? I mean, that's pretty, and it's really good. Like the music is great. Yeah, there it is. What made you decide to go into the studio and do that? What was that experience like?
Um, the funny thing is, oh, that's a back of it, by the way.
Ah, very nice.
The funny thing is, there was a guy called Russ Abbott. They were the Abbotts. They sort of make all different kinds of songs and stuff like that. And he called me up and asked me to do a record with them. And I would have done, except I just signed a contract to go to Germany. And I said, I'm going to be out there for 3 months. They said, we've got our own studio and everything. Like, we can do what we like there. I said, great. Yeah, I wanted to do it. But we couldn't get they were somewhere when I was somewhere. And all of a sudden, like, I've got this contract to go to Germany. I thought we were going there for 3 months. Ended up, I was in Germany for 7.5 months. Linda was with me the whole time. She wrestled out there too. But anyway, the time I finally came back, when I came back, I was in such great demand in Britain because I'd been away for 7.5 months. It was hard to get a thing. Now, what actually happened is I broke my Achilles tendon in half, so I couldn't wrestle. So that was a perfect time. I called Russ Abbott up and said, like, hey, I'm sort of available anytime now. They said, damn me, Adrian. They said, we just sold it was Canon Studios. We just sold Canon Studios. They said, but the guy there would really like to sort of do something with you. But it wasn't going to be with Russ Abbott anymore. So anyway, I called up Canon Studios. They said, yeah, come in. So I hobbled there on my crutches. My Achilles tendon was ripped right in half. I was told I'd never wrestle again.
Mm.
I've been told that so many times, but nobody can tell me that. You only make me more determined. Can't do something I want to do. Yeah, right. Um, anyway, I went there. And what happened first of all is I didn't know I mean, I didn't have a song. I mean, I could have done a fair cover of Buddy Holly or something like that at the time. Yeah, that would have been good.
Mm.
But I could only think of things I wanted to cover, and it needed to be something original. They said, we'll play different music, like by music they got from local writers, songwriters, and stuff like that. See if there's anything that sort of stands out. Anyway, They played a song. This guy had written a song called "I'm Only Happy When I'm Stoned," and he put his own voice to it and everything like that. But it sounded almost like something that Dean Martin would have sounded like I'm only happy when I'm stoned, like type of a deal and everything like that. But anyway, they were playing it, and I'm pretty good at actually putting different lyrics to a tune, you know.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, it's like I'm only happy when I'm stoned. So I start singing I'm only happy breaking bones. And there's other little bits I put in there and everything like that. I said, yeah, I like that. And then there was another one he played. And it was actually called A Mighty Big Girl. It was about a guy that went to a dance. I got mixed up with some big girl and everything like that. They start throwing about all over the place. I said, damn me. I said, with that one, all I'm going to do is inject a few things like a body slam and like a few wrestling terminologies that didn't even have to do very much to that.
Mm.
So anyway, they said like, well, we'll introduce you to the writer. The writer was from like Merseyside, like Liverpool. So he came in, we talked to him and everything like that. And I mean, this guy's really bloody funny. In actual fact, if you ever saw me with a manager for Continental, he was. I had him posed as my manager when he came out to actually do the music for my album. Don Woods. We had him. I made him manage me as Sir Cedric Everhard Hathaway.
Mm-hmm.
He was supposed to be my manager and barrister, everything like that. Oh yes, you know, Her Majesty will not be pleased, and you know, he said to Golden Soley like, Mr. Soley, he said, I can see you've attended your last garden party with Her Majesty. Well, I kind of caper, you know. But anyway, that's how that got to be. But then later on, actually, I said, I want something more big you can go to the ring with. And we did Imagine What I Can Do to You. And on the other side of that was I'm in Love with Me. So we did those and we just had two singles out for a while. But then when I was in that movie Grunt, they actually used three of the four songs I had in the movie Grunt. So I actually wrote a screenplay, and I called it Shake, Wrestle, and Roll.
Mm-hmm.
And I wrote all the other songs myself, all the lyrics. I still needed Don to put the music down to me because I can't write music. I mean, I know it needs to go, but I can't actually write it, you know. So I got Don to put the music down, everything like that. I mean, I've written more songs. I still haven't got the music to.
Mm.
I've got lyrics now. I mean, I've got what was another one? Leglocks Liberace. I'm Leglocks Liberace. I'm exotic Adrian Street. I can make a deathlock dainty. I could make a nutcracker sweet. I've got no candelabra, and I cannot sing a note. But I hear a moonlight sonata every time I grab his throat. And he kind of goes on like that.
That's great. And so you mentioned having written 7 autobiographies. That's incredible. I mean, number one, what was that experience like? And did you know you were going to write 7 books, or is that just the way it played out?
No, not really. I was advised by a lot of people, no, you can't write 7 books, like, you know what I mean? Now, you don't want to write a book about your childhood. Nobody's interested in that. They're only interested in the wrestling. I got a lot of advice from a lot of people. But the thing is, an awful lot of the funny, strange, crazy things that I did had an underlying reason. And a lot of that came from my childhood. Being told I can't do this, being told I can't do that. So I needed to write it right from the beginning. And I even wrote about all my father's experiences to actually give him an excuse for the way he treated me, even though he didn't deserve an excuse because he never treated my older brother or my younger sister that way.
Mm.
My older brother was the son my father always wanted. And my younger sister was the the baby daughter that my father always wanted. I was just there like spare freaking wedding. I was a spare kid.
So, do you think 7 books is it for you, or are you working on another one?
Well, never say never. I'm gonna have to show you that.
Oh yeah, I saw that online. That's really cool.
And the back is that's where we sign the autographs.
Very cool.
That's Linda and myself. Photographs all around, but that is the actual figure.
Did a great job
And
with
I
that.
don't know if you can see it, but it's even got my tattoos.
Oh really? Wow. How about that?
Per- Perfect.
That's great.
That's that is the best wrestling action figure in the world by
That's
far.
Yeah, just wanted to kind of wrap up by talking about your documentary, the documentary that WWE did on you. So I actually learned about you last year when WWE released their documentary about you, which is excellent. I thought they did a great job. What are your thoughts on their documentary that they did? Did you think, it did your career justice? Was it what you expected? What are your thoughts on what they had?
I thought they did a good job. Um, but I agree with everybody's criticism. I think it was 33 minutes long or something like that. They said it wasn't long enough.
Yep.
They said it wasn't nearly long enough. What they did was good. I liked it, but they hardly scratched the surface.
Yeah, I agree. And were you already filming your documentary at that time, or did you do it afterward?
Um, we almost finished the documentary, finished as far as I was concerned. But Joanne Randall's, um, she wanted to interview a few more people who knew me 1,000 years ago.
Mm. And are you happy with the way that your new documentary turned out that she did?
Yeah, yeah. But I mean, the reason she did the documentary was it's an introduction, more or less. They're doing a feature movie. She wants to do a feature movie on my life story.
Oh, like with actors and everything, right?
Yeah, I've even met a little boy that I've even met. I can't think of his name now, but they did the premiere of her movie in Bryn Mawr, the town I was actually born in the oldest cinema in Wales.
Mm.
Um, that's where they did the actual premiere, and there I met a little actor who was supposed to play me as a child. Really nice. Yes.
That'd be exciting to see, if that comes together, to tell your life story in that way. And are there
Yeah.
any other exciting projects on the horizon that you wanted to share with people? Anything to look out for?
Ooh, there's a few actually, but I've been told like stum and tell it and tell,
Yeah.
Oh, no, I can't because I said I wouldn't. I mean, if you sort of said like don't say anything about it. something, I wouldn't say it, you know.
Yeah, no, but that's good to know
But
that you're
there
busy.
are some, put it this way, there are some very exciting possibilities.
Wonderful, wonderful. Well, yeah, I appreciate your time here and that we got to cover a whole lot of ground. This has been a great discussion. So, thank you.
Yeah, thank you too. It's really nice meeting you, Michael.